Welcome to the final stave, and what a shift in tone. Scrooge has finally faced the truth, and now he chooses joy. This chapter is all about redemption. Dickens shows us that no matter how far someone has fallen, they can change. Make sure to pause the video now and read the chapter if you haven't already. And meet me back here when you're ready. Today we're diving into Stave 5 of A Christmas Carol. It's the final chapter where we see the full transformation of Ebenezer Scrooge. After a night of ghostly warnings and painful truths, Scrooge wakes up on Christmas morning and everything has changed. He wakes up truly alive for the first time in years. He realizes with amazement and gratitude that he hasn't missed Christmas and that he's been given a second chance. He exclaims, "I'm as light as a feather, as happy as an angel, as merry as a schoolboy." This triple simile shows how overwhelmed he is. He's overwhelmed with joy, freedom, and childlike excitement. Dickens shows us that redemption feels liberating, like the weight of selfishness has finally lifted. Now Scrooge doesn't just talk about change, he proves it with action. Number one, he buys the prize turkey and he sends this anonymously to the Cratchit family, showing his renewed generosity. Number two, he meets the charity collectors from Stave 1 and this time he gives them a huge donation, making up for his earlier cruelty. Number three, he goes to Fred's house for Christmas dinner, embracing family and forgiveness and festive joy. Number four, the next day he raises Bob Cratchit's salary and he promises to support that family. Number five, he becomes like a second father to Tiny Tim. And these actions show us that true change isn't just about regret, it's about rebuilding relationships and doing good in the world. The novella ends with a message of hope and unity. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone. This line brings us full circle, back to the Cratchits, back to kindness, and back to what Dickens believed Christmas should be. It's a time for generosity, for compassion, and human connection. Let's break down 4 powerful quotes from Stave 5. Make sure to note down your own annotations in your notebook. Quote number 1, "I am light as a feather, as happy as an angel, as merry as a schoolboy." This is Scrooge's reaction when he wakes up on Christmas morning. And it is a world away from the grumpy old miser that we met in Stave 1. Dickens uses a tricolon of similes here. Light as a feather, happy as an angel, merry as a schoolboy. This is to show that Scrooge is overwhelmed with joy and a sense of release. Each simile builds on the last, capturing a different emotional layer. Light as a feather suggests he feels free from the weight of guilt and greed. Happy as an angel has spiritual connotations. Scrooge is almost saint-like in his joy. Merry as a schoolboy evokes youth and innocence, a return to the joy that he lost long ago. Dickens is showing us here that redemption brings freedom, emotional, spiritual, and even physical. Quote number 2, "He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man." This is the narrator's summing up of Scrooge's new identity, and it is a huge contrast to the man described earlier as squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Again, Dickens uses the rule of 3, friend, master, man, to emphasize the completeness of Scrooge's transformation. It's a structural mirror of how Dickens used tricolons earlier to describe Scrooge's coldness. Number 3, "I will live in the past, the present, and the future." This line shows that Scrooge has fully absorbed the lessons of the 3 spirits. Structurally, it's significant. It echoes the way the ghosts were introduced earlier on and ties together the whole novella. The verb live is powerful. He is not just remembering or regretting, he's choosing to act differently going forward. There's also a sense of balance here. He will reflect on the past, he will live fully in the present, and plan for the future with care. Dickens presents this as the ideal way to live, learning from your past, being present in the moment, and acting with future consequences in mind. Quote number 4, God bless us, everyone. The novella ends with this iconic line spoken by Tiny Tim, but echoed as the narrator's final message. The language is simple but deeply inclusive. Everyone reminds us that kindness, joy, and compassion are for everyone, not just the rich or the fortunate. The phrase God bless adds a spiritual, almost prayer-like tone, as if this story isn't just about Christmas, but about how we live all year round. Dickens is making one final appeal to the reader. Choose kindness, care for others, we all matter. These 4 quotes capture everything that Dickens wants us to remember. That change is possible, that joy is a choice, and that we all have a part to play in building a kinder world. Now let's look at how themes like redemption and generosity are brought to life in this final stave. Theme 1 is redemption. Stave 5 is all about Scrooge's transformation, and Dickens shows it through both language and action. It is not enough to say that Scrooge has changed. He proves it by sending a turkey to the Cratchits, donating to the charity collectors, attending Fred's dinner, raising Bob's wages, becoming a second father to Tiny Tim. Dickens uses verbs of action. He sent, he went, he raised, he became, to show that real change requires doing, not just saying. This is redemption in motion. It's not a promise, but it's action. It's a performance. Next up is generosity and joy. As Scrooge lets go of greed, we see joy and kindness rushing in to take its place. He exclaims, "I'm as light as a feather, as happy as an angel, as merry as a schoolboy." Dickens uses a tricolon of similes here to build rhythm and emotional energy. Each simile adds a different layer of happiness. Physical happiness through light, spiritual happiness through angel, and youthful happiness through schoolboy. This joyful tone replaces the grim tone of earlier staves. It is a complete emotional reversal. Dickens is showing that generosity doesn't just benefit others, it brings personal joy too. Dickens carefully designs the circular structure of the novella. The story begins and ends on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, but Scrooge has undergone a complete emotional transformation. In Stave 1, Christmas is almost something to mock. Just think how Scrooge repeated "Bah humbug." But in Stave 5, Christmas becomes something to embrace and to share. This structural arc creates closure. The key narrative strands, Scrooge, the Cratchits, Fred, the collectors, are all revisited and resolved. And then Scrooge is described. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man. The repeated phrase "as good a" reinforces his complete transformation. It also mimics the triplets used earlier on in the novel to describe Scrooge negatively. So now we feel that full contrast. These tricolons aren't just stylistic, they are structural markers of change. And don't forget the narrator. Dickens doesn't just disappear in this final stave. In fact, his voice becomes more warm and playful and light-hearted. He tells us Scrooge was better than his word. The tone here is affectionate. The narrator is inviting the reader to smile, to celebrate, and to feel hope. Dickens isn't scolding anymore. He is rejoicing with us. Finally, let's look at AO1, AO2, and AO3 in Stave 5. Let's explore what happens, how Dickens writes it, and why it mattered to his original readers. For AO1, this stave shows the final transformation of Scrooge, emotionally, socially, and morally. We see huge shifts in his behaviour through all of his acts of kindness, his language, which is full of joy and warmth. "I'm as light as a feather, as happy as an angel," and his relationships as he reconnects with people. He becomes a second father to Tiny Tim. He makes peace with Fred, and he treats Bob with fairness and care. Ultimately, this stave is about action. Scrooge doesn't just feel different, he proves it through generosity and kindness. For AO2 then, Dickens uses a range of techniques to emphasise Scrooge's joy. and this kind of like newfound generosity. We see joyful language and tone, words like merry, happy, delighted, chuckled. The tone is energetic and playful, and it is a total contrast to the bleak tone earlier on. He uses tricolon and repetition, as good a friend, as good a master, as good a man. The rule of three reinforces the completeness of his transformation. He has changed in every area of his life. And there's similes: light as a feather, happy as an angel, merry as a schoolboy. Scrooge feels emotionally reborn. And of course, the symbolism. The turkey symbolizes generosity without expectation. Tiny Tim is our symbol of hope for the future. God bless us everyone symbolizes this idea of unity and delivers that message that everyone matters. And finally, for AO3, Dickens ends the novel with a tone of hope and moral clarity. In Victorian society, the wealth gap was huge, and many believed that the poor deserved their suffering. A Christmas Carol challenged that mindset. He shows that wealth is meaningless without generosity. Scrooge had money all along, but he only finds joy when he uses it to help others. Dickens shows that anyone can change. Scrooge was the worst of the worst, but even he can be redeemed. This would have been a powerful message to Dickens's middle and upper class readers. Dickens also promotes social responsibility through characters like Bob, Fred, and even Tiny Tim. Dickens suggests that love and kindness and community are more valuable than profit. And that's the story of A Christmas Carol. From coldness to compassion, from isolation to connection, from selfishness to joy. But understanding the story is only part of the challenge.